All right. I'm Joe Turner, and this is the City Manager Unfiltered podcast, a podcast for city managers and other public sector executives. It is the most influential local government podcast in America, and it's just me this week. It's just me, no guests. I wanted to give you guys a personal update. I got some good news, I got some bad news to share. I also wanted to make an announcement about a project I've been working on. And so this episode is going to be much shorter than a regular episode. I just wanted to give you guys some updates and share some stuff with you guys. The first thing I'd like to do is tease the release of my new book. It's coming soon. It's called The City Manager's Guide to Contract Negotiations. Not a very creative title, but I think you guys will appreciate the content. I've spent the last, well, I don't want to say how long I've been spending on it. It's been a long time. I've been working on this book. I had never envisioned that I was going to write a book about city manager contract negotiations, but what started out as a guide to complement or supplement the AAME model contract has turned into a book. It is basically complete. It's 200 pages long on a PDF, and there's going to be another 100 or so pages of addendum material, depending on how many contracts I include in the appendix. So it's going to be a pretty lengthy look. It's a really comprehensive look at contract negotiations. I'm going to unpack that more later on in this episode. Now, I have some good news and some bad news on the personal front that I want to share with you guys. And the good news is that I've had conversations with my attorney, multiple conversations. We're optimistic about my criminal case, these two felony charges that I'm facing in Walton County, Florida, related to my time serving as the assistant county administrator there. I can't get into it here, unfortunately. I'd like to unpack it more. Suffice to say that my attorney has given me really good feedback on these charges, and we are very confident that we're going to be victorious on this front. Since I last addressed this issue specifically on this podcast way back in, I think it was episodes 98 and 99, this is what's happened. So, as I shared with you before in the episode, I was arrested. And in Florida, they have something called a first appearance. That's where you go in and they give you your bail amount. That was already covered in that episode. Since that time, I had to go through an arraignment process. That's where you plead guilty, not guilty, no contest. Obviously, I pled not guilty through my attorney who was there for me in person. That was in April. Then there was a June 19th court date, which is a pretrial hearing of some sort. I was not present for that. My attorney was. And now my next court date is going to be sometime in August. I think it's latter part of August. I don't have the exact date in front of me. Since that episode aired, my attorney and I have received the discovery materials from the prosecution. I have reviewed it. I haven't reviewed every single aspect of it because a lot of it contains extraction data from an iPad, and I don't know how to read ones and zeros. I'm just being very, I'm kind of half joking there, but I don't know how to read all that content in there. But suffice to say, I've reviewed all the other materials, and my attorney and I have discussed it. And like I said, we're very confident. I'm hoping to have a more thorough and robust discussion about my criminal case with my attorney on this podcast. I'm trying to coax and cajole her to come on the show to discuss it so that I can share that with you and you guys can be a part of that journey and kind of understand what's going on there. So all in all, I am very optimistic about where this case is going, but I'm very frustrated about the process because I have this albatross hanging around my neck and I'm paralyzed and feel like there's not much I can do about it. And I just have to sort of sit here and wait. And I really hate this part of this process. And that leads me to the bad news on the personal front. And I'm not really, I can't believe I'm really even sharing this with you guys. I'm embarrassed to share it. Um, but I just haven't been in a good place mentally over the last many months. This year's been an absolute waste for me. I've been depressed. I've been beat up and really down. I have not really wanted to engage with the world very much. Most days, I don't really want to get out of bed and do anything. I've watched a lot of trashy TV, a lot of doom scrolling, things that are not healthy, obviously, even when you are in good spirits. Um, but I've just been You ever guys ever hear stories about those crazy stories where someone will say that they were in like a coma-like state where they were conscious but they couldn't speak or move and they were kind of trapped in their body? I just kind of feel like that. I've just been dealing with this whole process and having this issue hang over my head, and I haven't really been handling it very well, to be honest. I've just, one day I take a step forward, the next day I take a step back, next day I take two steps forward and one step back. Day after that, I take a step forward, and it feels like I take two steps back. And I just, man, I just haven't been in a good place. I've tried myself to pull out of it. I'm aware that I'm in a funk. I'm conscious of it. I'm not suffering from depression, I would say. Like I don't have suicidal ideations or anything like that. I don't want people to panic or think that I'm somehow going to go off the deep end here. I'm nowhere close to that. I've just been in a situation where I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to engage with people. I want to not get out of bed in the morning. It's kind of weird. I don't want to go to bed at night and I don't want to wake up in the morning. Kind of reminds me as a kid, but when bath time. I don't know if you guys were like that during your bath times. Like I hated getting in the bath when I was a little boy, 4 or 5, 6 years old, and then I never wanted to get out of the water when I got in. So anyway, I just been suffering through this, guys. Um, and each time I think I'm kind of coming out of it and feeling like I'm getting out of neutral and maybe getting into first gear, I just take a step back and I find myself defeated and dejected and down, and I'm not even sure why I'm sharing all this. Well, I guess I know why I'm sharing. Um, and that is, um, I'm so caught off guard by feeling this way and being in this condition or this state of mind. It's so foreign to me as someone who's so confident and used to being able to kind of like snap themselves out of it or pull themselves up by their bootstraps and just take care of business and handle it, or put your head down and push through, right? That's sort of been my MO throughout my entire life. And I can't seem to find first gear or stay in first gear, let alone, get into a cruising speed and start humming along and what have you. And so I don't want to say I'm desperate or that this is desperation, but I guess maybe it's kind of quasi desperation. I don't know. Um, I've just sort of reached a point where I feel like I need to publicly explain what's going on with me as sort of almost like a public accountability mechanism. I guess what I'm hoping to accomplish out of this is that by coming out here and publicly expressing these issues that I'm wrestling with and that I'm struggling with, that I will now need to buckle up and bear down and power through. And that um, I'm now putting it out there that I need to stop mourning and going through this pity party or whatever the hell I want to call it or whatever the hell it is. And I need to get back in gear and start being productive. I have not been very productive. And the crazy vicious cycle of it all is that when I'm not productive, I naturally get down on myself and I get depressed or dejected or have negative self-talk because I'm not doing anything productive. And so you can see how this turns into a vicious cycle. I guess what I'm saying at the end of the day is I'm sharing this publicly with my audience because I know a lot of you guys who follow me care about me genuinely, and I appreciate that. I've had a lot of people reach out and express their support and appreciation for the things I've done and check in with me, and I'm so grateful for it. It's very strange because in some respects, um, I don't even like looking at my phone or checking the notifications, and I don't often want to talk to people or engage in text conversation because sometimes it just feels like little razor blades slicing me when people do check in, and it's weird. It's like a love-hate relationship. It's like, you want people to check in to show that they care, but at the same time, I don't really want to talk to people about it. And then it's weird because it's like I'm so confident based on what my attorney says that this is all going to go by the boards, and so I would have thought many months ago that I would have been able to pull myself out of this and just sort of carry on. I was researching my criminal case before I actually nailed down and hired my attorney. And after my attorney and I got our discovery documents and stuff, and we had our consultation and what have you, our review, she identified case law that I'd already identified before I hired her that corroborated what my thoughts were and what my thinking is on this case. And so I don't know. It's just weird. I don't know why I can't sort of seem to get my butt in gear. I drove across country and met with people, went golfing with Dan went in Ohio for the first time, which was a lot of fun, and that helped for a time. But I get back home and I kind of get back in the funk, and so yeah, I don't know. That's a long rambling way of me telling you guys that I'm struggling through, trying to power through. I appreciate your support. This is my public accountability system that I'm trying to put in place because everything I've been doing to this point has been unsuccessful. And so there you have it. I guess what I'm going to say to you is I'm giving myself until next week, next Wednesday, to release this book that I've been writing, that I've been spending hours and hours on and trying to power through and get done. So I guess I'm going to release the book in a week. That's my deadline. I'm publicly stating it. I want to get my butt in gear next week. I'm going to give myself this week to essentially complete my pity party and be done with it. And if you're listening to this and you care about me, please feel free to reach out. I might not respond right away, but I would appreciate your support, obviously. And yeah, I have no idea what I just said. That probably sound like a rambling idiot. But anyway, that's about as real as I've ever been on this podcast, and I try to be as real and unfiltered as it can be because I think you guys deserve that. And yeah, yeah. So let's turn this discussion to the book. I want to talk a little bit more about the book and what I've been working on. I'm really excited about it. I'm also hoping that by getting this book out there and putting this into the universe for it to be discussed and dissected, that would also help me pull out of this funk that I'm in. So let's talk about it. The City Manager's Guide to Contract Negotiations has about 200 pages of content that includes the AAME model contract. And then I'm also supplementing it with additional contracts from other city managers from across the country, primarily Texas and California. There should be probably about 10 contracts. There's another 100 pages or so of content in the appendix. And these contracts are being included because there's just little things about them that I think stand out or worth noting, and I wanted to bring them to your attention. And at the end of the day, the more and more I tried to come up with a model contract, the more I just realized it was kind of futile in the sense that there's no such thing as a model contract that's going to work for everybody, that's going to be perfect for every situation, that's going to cover every scenario, every individual, and where they're at in their career. There's different state laws, et cetera, so forth and so on. So as I was getting frustrated with my inability to put together this model contract, what I had envisioned, that's when the guide started taking shape. This idea of providing more detailed breakdown of the content or structure of the contract and being able to give you different perspectives or my thought processes on these different provisions and what your options might be. The guide has now 13 chapters, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a sneak preview as far as what those chapters consist of. Chapter one is the introduction and purpose. That's where I just talk about the purpose of the book. I'm trying to create essentially, think of like a pilot when they go through a checklist. If you've ever observed a pilot as they're getting ready to take off on in an airplane, you'll see they go through an exhaustive checklist. Obviously, a lot of it's redundant, repetitive, and what have you, but it's an exhaustive checklist so they cover all their bases and they make sure they get off the ground safely, right? My purpose of this book is essentially to create this exhaustive checklist for you as city managers and aspiring city managers to review as you're going through your contract negotiations. Okay. So in the introduction, I'm talking also about the state of the profession and just some general thoughts that I have. In chapter two, I talk about how you should prepare for your contract negotiations and what steps you should take. In chapter three, I break down a specific step in more detail. That's the philosophical approach to contract negotiations. I talk about my philosophical approach and encourage you to adopt your own philosophical approach. In chapter 4, that's when I start breaking down the components of the contract. That's the compensation and benefits section. So I start talking about COLAs, merit raises, bonuses, vacations, sick days, PTO, your pension and retirement benefits, deferred comp, professional growth and development. Chapter 5 is going to be on health and other forms of insurance, health, life insurance, disability insurance. Then you have chapter 6, which is about allowances and reimbursements, your car allowance, your cell phone and technology allowance, home office stipend, business expenses. I even talk about relocation and short-term housing expenses and some other stuff in that chapter. You move to chapter 7, which is where we talk about severances, separations, and terminations. That's where I really unpack my thoughts on severances, contract types, and I really put forth this idea that I think city managers should have clauses in their contract where they can opt out of the agreement and still collect a severance, right? This idea of bringing parity or balance to the manager council manager relationship, because right now, generally speaking, you have one choice as a city manager. If you're not happy, you can exit, terminate your contract, announce you're leaving, resign, what have you, and not collect a severance. But when it comes to the elected officials, they have the ability to terminate you for cause and without cause. They have the option. And right now, city managers don't have an option. So there's really nothing that holds these elected officials accountable. And I think we need to do more to bring about some fair treatment and just treatment by these elected officials when it comes to how they're interacting with their manager. So chapter 7 is all about severances, separations, and terminations. Chapter 8, I talk about political and electoral safeguards, some of my thoughts on provisions or clauses you should have in your contract to protect yourself from the politicized nature of this profession. Chapter 9, we talk about housing options and strategies. Chapter 10, we talk about various miscellaneous provisions that I think are worthy of discussion. I'm talking about residency requirements, hours of work and council expectations, disclosure of job searches, outside activities and conflicts of interest, so forth and so on. Chapter 11, we talk about states with severance caps. This is a really big issue. I haven't talked about this much on LinkedIn or the podcast because, as I said earlier, I've been a little bit disconnected and kind of struggling with things. But Texas just passed a 20-week severance cap, and it has been signed by the governor. It goes into effect in September. So Texas now joins Florida and Illinois as being the only three states with a 20-week cap on severance. New Jersey has a 12-week cap, but again, I think that's for some communities, not all communities. I think it's based off the type of jurisdiction or unit of government. So anyway, we need to start having a more extensive conversation about these states with severance caps. So I start putting in some ideas and strategies I think you might want to tackle or implement. And then we have some advanced discussions that are not really part of a traditional contract, but things I want to bring up and put on your radar because I think these are things that executives need to start pushing for. Then in chapter 13, we talk a little bit about negotiation psychology. I'm not a subject matter expert when it comes to the psychology of negotiations, but I provide some of my thoughts. And there you have it. So my intent with this book on contract negotiations is to teach you how to fish. So you can read this book, you can have an exhaustive, comprehensive review, a checklist, and therefore you can put together the contract that makes the most sense for you and your family and your personal situation when it comes to contract negotiations. This book is meant to be a living document, meaning that I am going to update this regularly. This is just the first iteration after I get it out into the community for your review and dissection. I'm going to update it. What I'm really hoping for is that this book will spawn innovative, creative ideas that we can then add to it at a later date. So if you have seen something in another city manager's contract, or you've done something that you think should be added into it, or if the content of this book triggers something where you have another idea or a thought process, I would appreciate it if you brought it to my attention so that I can include it in the next iteration and credit you with that idea. What I think is important to understand is that when you're going through the contract negotiations, it's not realistic to think that you can capture everything in this book, this guide, and have that be encapsulated in your contract. What we're hoping is going to happen is that as managers read the book, read these ideas, that they will start implementing pieces of it over time, and so that this can become more common, more standard language, especially when it comes to the city manager having the opt-out clause. To me, that's the going to be really the big test. Can we start getting more aggressive on the opt-out language so that city managers are not held prisoners in these situations that are toxic, destructive, harmful for their reputation, harmful for their career. And really, at the end of the day, I keep on coming back to this. It's about bringing greater parity or equilibrium in that power exchange dynamic between the manager and the council. I'm looking forward to everyone reading the book. I'm looking forward to people implementing aspects of it, and hopefully we can build upon it and create stronger, more effective contracts for city managers in the future. Please share with me your constructive feedback when you get an opportunity to sit down and break bread with it. I would love to hear your thoughts. This book, as I currently envision it, will only be released to members of the American Association of Municipal Executives. So every founding member is going to get a copy of it. And if you want to get your own copy and you're not a founding member, you're going to have to sign up to become an AAME member when I open the door for new AAME membership. Thank you again for your patience and for your support over these last many months. I'm truly grateful and appreciative. So catch you next week when I release this book in the AAME community. I'm Joe Turner, and this is the City Manager Unfiltered podcast, a podcast for city managers and other public sector executives. If you enjoy the content, please make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button on your platform of choice so you don't miss an episode. And if you like the content, please leave a rating and review on your platform of choice, especially those Spotify and Apple users. Thank you very much.